Let's listen to this man. He got some good news for you. Hey, everybody, gather near. The doctor's in the house, so lend him your ear. The things he can say might even make your day. He might even help your pain go away. The doctor is in the house. The doctor is in the house. Let the doctor know what's bothering you. I'm sure he can tell you just what to do. The doctor is in the house. Doctor is in the house. Let the doctor know what's bothering you. The doctor is in the house. If you have a pain, call a doctor. If you have a sprain, call a doctor. Let the doctor know what you're going through. Let him tell you what's good for you, because the doctor is in the house.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, the doctor is in the house. Welcome to Dr. Ron, Unfiltered, Uncensored, with episode number 557, titled Unveiling the Nation's Silent Killers. So don't shoot the messenger today, but you're going to hopefully learn and you'll be able to check it out. What I'm about to say about the nation's killers. What I thought was the third leading cause of death is now the first. You'll be surprised at the second, third, and fourth. And they do not include cancer and heart disease. So warriors, as you see things are heating up, the world is changing, medicine is changing. Hippocrates said, if you're not your own doctor, you are a fool. And he was right then, he is right now. And Socrates always told people, I cannot tell you what to do, but I can help you and challenge you to think. So that's what warriors are going to be doing. We are going to be resilient. We're going to have empathy and compassion for those that do not know or appreciate what's happening in the world today. We're going to be learning continuously. We're going to have courage to make decisions. We're going to collaborate with warriors so we can combine together. And we're going to have integrity and commit to ethical practices. We're going to think about innovation and problem solving. And we're going to be an advocate for public health. That's what the warriors have to do. And today's episode, ladies and gentlemen, with an attitude of gratitude, we're going to delve into the startling reality about pharmaceuticals. They have now risen to become the nation's #1 killer. But they're not alone in this troubling trend. Doctors themselves with medical errors are ranking as the third leading cause of death. You think there's some kind of systemic issues with the medical industry? And you'll be very surprised at the fourth leading cause of death, which you shouldn't be surprised at. All in the medical field. Controversial topics, I agree. But I have to bring them to your attention. And I have to try and stay calm and collected while I'm doing this, while we navigate this. These health hazards are our nation's silent killers. Now, I'm even having trouble deciding how to start, because I've been telling you for years now that we have to be warriors, and we not only have to be conscious of our diet, but we have to be conscious of what we watch, who we listen to, and what we read, because it can affect us. can affect us tremendously. In fact, it could kill us. So, a new report: medical drugs, pharmaceuticals are the leading cause of death in America. Notice it does not say vitamins, minerals, or supplements. It says medical drugs is this silent epidemic ravaging in America, causing more deaths than guns, car crashes, and suicides combined. This report was from Peter Goetsch, published in the Brownstone Institute. He estimated 882,000 Americans die annually from the effects of medical drugs. The title of the article was Prescription Drugs Are the Leading Cause of Death, April 16, 2024. Did you see that on the news last night? Have you read about it in any of your papers? And he doesn't even mention in the report those that are severely injured and disabled by drugs. The number would be quite higher than 882,000. And no word about vaccines. This is just properly prescribed medications. So you're hearing it here. 882,000 killings a year, 8.82 million killings every 10 years from medicines that are supposed to heal us. And it does not include, as some writers have said, the emotional turmoil that it causes in families, especially for every person who dies after ingesting these drugs. And how about the millions who are still alive but are chronically devastated by these drugs? Would you say that could be a Trojan horse in America? The first, number one leading cause of death? Pharmaceutical drugs. And guess what? Guess what's number two? Well, since we're on drugs, psychiatric drugs alone. I'm sorry, not number two, but number three. Psychiatric drugs alone are the third leading killer, according to the report by Peter Goetsch. And these deaths have been rising, and we've been talking about them on this podcast. And with all these psychiatric drugs, there's been science that says that depression is not a chemical imbalance. And how many people over 65 are taking these drugs? Goetsch estimates that they cause 390,000 deaths annually in the over 65 age group alone. And I'm not telling you this to scare you. There are some medications that we need, but I'm telling you that they are used indiscriminately by different physicians because every diagnosis is put in a box and treated by a different physician. And maybe on a computer screen, it doesn't look like there's going to be a problem taking these drugs, but in reality, there is. It is a crapshoot once you take more than one drug. And just to think and listen, when you hear people saying that antidepressants should be available over the counter, calling them safe and effective when they are the third leading cause of death in the United States. Sayer G, that's J.I., he wrote an article entitled, Has Drug-Driven Medicine Become a Form of Human Sacrifice? An interesting article. but that is nothing to sneeze about. But again, have you heard anything about vitamins, minerals, and supplements causing a single death? What a contrast. No deaths from vitamins or minerals, and yet 882,000 deaths from properly prescribed pharmaceuticals. I want you to think about it while I catch my breath. I reported about 4 years ago, and here's what we said. Appropriately prescribed prescription drugs are the fourth leading cause of death, causing about 330,000 patients who die each year. Now it's up to 882,000. It's almost it is a zone epidemic. I mean, boy, it hurts me to even say this, about this medical industry. And we're not done with the medicine and medical industry yet. So we have these deaths. We have the therapeutic competition, which means if you're taking more than one drug, as I said, it's like a crapshoot because one medicine might cancel out the effect of another. Or taking a drug for one condition might make another illness worse. Are we, like with some of the shots we've been taking, are we undergoing an uncontrolled experiment, ladies and gentlemen? So, I've been talking about the future of medicine and how things have to change. But sometimes we got to go backwards too and remember when doctors were actually doctors and examine patients and talk with them. But that's what happens when different doctors treat different conditions. When you treat one condition at a time. Cardiologist might give you a drug to treat high blood pressure. Then your arthritis is acting up and your rheumatologist gives you a pill for that. Well, there may not be any red flags on the computer screen as you fill them at your pharmacy, but that blood pressure medicine could be making your arthritis worse. And you know what? If that happens, what happens? You then take more medication. And I could go on and on about the different drug reactions with different diseases that would not show up as a red flag on the pharmacist's computer screen. But I think you get the idea. So, in this world where medical errors and pharmaceutical drugs are leading causes of death, I would think it's about time you start doing some research on your own and question everything. Because truth goes through stages, right? It's ridiculed, violently opposed, and then finally it becomes self-evident. But it has to go through those stages. So the third leading cause of death, psychiatric drugs, and right behind it, medical errors. Medical errors. This came to light a long time ago in 2014, and I have done many podcasts about medical errors. And you might hear me shuffling papers because I have stacks and stacks of papers on death by modern medicine. And I started on this by reading a book called Death by Modern Medicine by Dr. Carolyn Dean, Dean. She talks about how for well over a century, the treatment of symptoms with drugs has dominated the definition of healthcare. So cholesterol is a symptom. Pain is a symptom. But what's causing that high cholesterol? What's causing that pain? Our medical profession has the paradigm of a pill for an ill. So if you have pain, we're going to relieve the pain. And we're not even talking today about the pharmaceutical industry and how they paid doctors and actors, and they overloaded the mainstream media for the opioid epidemic. They paid so they can sell drugs. Our insurance companies do not recognize time spent by a physician counseling on nutritional care or natural approaches to healthcare. And the pharmaceutical industry, sorry to say, does influence our providers and our researchers because they don't get money for research that does not give the pharmaceutical company the results they expect and want. And we also read about the ghostwriters. The pharmaceutical companies will have someone write a paper for them. A lot of it comes from Iran, and they'll pick a noted specialist in their field and pay them so they could use their name on the paper. And they do have a great lobby, over $1 million a day. I have to catch my breath every so often. This is crazy. And doctors have other reasons for making mistakes. I mean, I'm not, they're afraid of having malpractice, so they order tests that are not necessary, and those tests, if they come up with an abnormal result, have to be followed up, and sometimes unnecessary surgeries are done. And there's patient pressure because they see all these ads on television and they take them to their doctor. And even with electronic records, it doesn't make much sense. As I explained in the video I made this weekend, a physician was counseling a patient about her high cholesterol and just disregarded the fact that she was hypothyroid. And most cholesterol elevations are due to your thyroid gland. But this physician said, no, I don't believe it. Well, this is not a religion. Although they practice it like a religion, it is supposed to be science. So just some other numbers, just so you know. There's a +1 report that said that 20.6% of all medical care is unnecessary, including 22% of prescription medications, 24.9% of medical tests, and 11% of procedures. So what's our take-home message? Even if a drug or a treatment is quote unquote backed by science, this does not guarantee that it is safe or effective. And just because an alternative treatment has not been published in a medical journal does not mean it is unsafe or ineffective. And our medical profession, our doctors, often flat out ignore the influence of diet and lifestyle factors such as sleep, exercise, keto diets, exposure to the sun, and electromagnetic fields and toxins. And you know how much I talk about that. So these are things that us as warriors have to think about every time we go in for a checkup. And that's another thing. Annual physicals we'll do another podcast on that. Not shown to be very, very effective at preventing any disease. But you know what? If you are facing a health challenge, you must see a competent conventional physician to rule out any serious conditions. But you might also want to identify a qualified natural health consultant, someone that understands health at a foundational level. to make sure you get to the root of the problem. My friend and prior co host, Dr. Jerry Smith, has written a book about getting the splinter out, how to get to the root cause of the problem. Don't be one of the 1 in 5 adults on the receiving end of a medical error. Don't be that. Just put this in perspective. And this is not a new number. Well, I do have a new number. I'll bring that up in a second. But in 2011, doctors wrote 4.02 billion prescriptions for drugs in America. And the math shows us that that turns out to be 13 prescriptions for every man, woman, and child. Pretty good year for the pharmaceutical companies, huh? And what are the effects of all these drugs? Well, you heard the effect. Number one cause of death in the United States. That's the effect. And what are our alphabet agencies doing about it? You sort of don't hear about it, do you? You don't hear about the 25% of hospitalizations that result in complications in healthcare. You don't hear about it, do you? You don't, and it just blows my mind that an article like the number one cause of death being pharmaceuticals doesn't show up someplace. So from 2009 to 2022, the number of prescription drugs dispensed in 2022 was a whopping 6.7 billion. And at what price does that come with? Not only in human suffering and number one cause of death, but how about just the price of medical care in the United States? And we ranked at the bottom of all developed countries in outcomes. All right. Well, we can say that prescription usage increases with age, but that's because physicians are prescribing more drugs and not spending time on natural issues. The United States still has the highest per capita drug spending in the world. Because why? The United States prices are based solely on what the market can bear rather than the actual cost of production. Personal health care expenditures have more than doubled since 2000. Estimated U.S. prescribed drug expenditures amounted to $378 billion at the end of 2021. So do you think there's a problem? Number one cause of death? Unnecessary surgeries, medication errors, hospital errors, infections. And some of these articles were written by Johns Hopkins physicians. Medical mistakes, ladies and gentlemen, are more commonplace than you imagine. That's why you must always ask questions and demand answers. And a lot of these deaths aren't showing up because some of them occur at home. So they're not included in medical errors. And there's no code for death, so they're not coded on death certificates. Jeez. You see why it gets me upset in a profession that is so necessary, but so controlled and so profit oriented. The kids we've lost to the opioid epidemic, I mean, it's hard. It's hard. Some physicians are actually coming out and thinking that some people should be prosecuted for this. I don't know. I don't have a feeling about it because I have to study it even more. But I know one thing, and I've talked to you about it. We are an ultimate failure. We do not know how to treat chronic diseases. We have the most expensive healthcare, and we don't know how to treat chronic diseases. That's why we throw so many drugs at them. And as I said, we'll probably get into this in another podcast. I mean, I can't get it all in today because all the tests and treatment that do more harm than good. And one of the holy grail ones is colonoscopies. Do you really need them after you're 65? How much disease do they really pick up? Statin drugs, which is billions and billions of dollars. I will get the exact statistic when I talk to you about statins, but it's somewhere around if you treat a person with high cholesterol for 5 years, you may extend their life for 4 days. And you might want to reacquaint yourself with relative risk and absolute risk because the pharmaceutical companies use relative risk, which makes things sound so much better. If 100 people don't take a statin drug and 100 people do take a statin drug, if one person dies in the statin group and two die in the non-statin group, right? At least 98 survived in the non-statin group and 99 in the statin group. They would say that's a 50% improvement if you took the statin, but that's a relative risk. The absolute risk is tenths of a percent. Let me go over so we don't spend too much time. We're already at the 27-minute mark. Let me just give you a real stunner for the fourth place in leading causes of death. Okay, you're probably going to shoot me for this one, but it is abortions from Planned Parenthood. In its annual report of 22-23, they reported that the corporation ended the lives of 393,000 during that year. Planned Parenthood is an abortion business, and that's all they do is abortions. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know, but you should really be concerned about it when we start killing babies in these numbers. And now they are the fourth leading cause of death in the United States. Heart disease and cancer might be a little bit more, but we got prescription drugs and doctors also up there. And psychiatric drugs up there. They have a 97% abortion rate once a woman walks in there. No adoption plans. Fourth leading cause of death. And as you know, some people are making that a platform. They probably can, maybe they want to go up there with pharmaceutical drugs and have it the number one cause of death. It's really disturbing to your host. There's so many, we do so much to try and save life and value life, but we're not valuing life anymore. We're giving experimental drugs to everybody. We're giving drugs that look good on a computer out to people. And now the FDA says certain drugs don't even have to have a controlled study. They can just, or they don't have to notify anybody that they're in a drug treatment program because these drugs are probably safe and effective. Well, if you want to believe that. So please, Always ask your doctor whether a recommended test or treatment is really necessary, then do some homework. Now, if in traumatic situations, the United States is very, very successful in treating trauma, but avoid hospitals unless absolutely necessary. So you don't end up being a statistic of a complication of being in the hospital. I will do a podcast on endoscopies, but please do your due diligence. Read Epic Times, read Dr. Tenpenny's uh, articles on colonoscopies. Learn how they should be sterilized. And if you are hospitalized, please enlist a healthcare advocate. Make sure the healthcare advocate knows what you should be getting, and they ask the nurse or practitioner or aide every time something is done to you. Don't be afraid to remind the nurses and doctors to wash their hands or change gloves before they touch you. You know, doctors, I see them now, and I see nurses out at Mission Barbecue and other places with their scrubs on, and then they go back. I hope they get a new pair of scrubs before they go into surgery. You probably should do your own preparation for surgery. Make sure you have marked what part of your body needs to have the surgery. Safe surgery saves lives. Go there and download a printout. And of course, since you know there has been no deaths from vitamins or minerals, please optimize your vitamin D levels. I will tell you that's more effective than getting a flu shot because we don't know all the ingredients in the flu shot, but we do know there's a lot of mercury in there. If possible, avoid antibiotics. They're tremendously overprescribed and misused. They destroy our microbiome in our gut, and as I've said, a superior interior is necessary to be healthy. And nobody talks about natural immunity. Our bodies have natural immunity. Remember, we used to play in the playgrounds, drink water out of a hose, get muddy. We had a robust immune system, as George Carlin would say. Once you swam in the Hudson River, nothing could get to you. Don't listen to these ads on television for drugs. In fact, don't listen to much television at all. It's all meant to gaslight you. And now that you know that pharmaceuticals are the number one cause of death in the United States, please be careful when something is prescribed for you. A lot of diseases can be effectively addressed by lifestyle changes. Those of you who listened to Russell Jaffe when he was on the program said that 92% of your health can be influenced by lifestyle changes. Diet, exercise, get a good night's sleep, reduce stress reduction. I mean, you have to work at it. Turn off that Wi-Fi at night. Put your phone on airplane mode when not in use. Don't put it up to your head. Use a speaker. These are the things that are just killing us, ladies and gentlemen. We have everything is upside down in this country. So I want to talk in the coming weeks about cholesterol myth. It is a myth. And again, I've been telling you about ultra processed foods. Now they have a list of 30 health issues from diabetes to heart disease. Ultra processed foods. And if you find a physician who has common sense, will talk to you, will face you eye to eye, will actually examine you rather than just put the stethoscope on your coat and on your back and say, "Oh, I can hear everything." No, they cannot hear everything. And don't be gaslit. Don't the real virus during the Chinese virus was the fear that they were able to instill in everybody. And just remember, they locked down the whole country in 30 days because of fear, not because of sickness or illness, because they injected and instilled fear in the population. And, for Christians out there, please read your Bible. Don't be afraid to be a Christian. Don't be afraid of any religion. Our country was founded on a God-given rights. We have to really think about that every day. Well, I don't want to go down that path right now. I'll leave that for Pastor Anthony. So we have to detoxify, de-stress, move, have exercise, eat as whole as we can in our diet. Drink good, clean water. That would be a start. So that we don't become a statistic that drives up that 882,000 number of annual deaths linked to pharmaceuticals. Ladies and gentlemen, I may have been a little bit hair scatterbrained today, but there's just so much I wanted to try and get to you. And I hope I did it. I hope I gave you something to think about. So try and stay positive. I think we're at a turning point where things are going to get better. But we have to take a part in that. And we have to be ready if things get worse. Know about the conditions you have. Know about how you could take care of them if all of a sudden we can't get our medications. Okay, just be prepared. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is Dr. Ron, and my podcast is Dr. Ron Unfiltered, Uncensored, and with a subtitle of Dr. Ron's Wellness Warriors, because we have to be in the forefront. We have to be in the know and take the lead and know about the pharmaceutical deaths, know about doctors' deaths, know about psychiatric pill deaths. Know that we have still lots of heart disease and cancer in spite of spending trillions of dollars not getting any place. That's another thing. You would think with all the money spent on statin drugs, heart disease would be going down. It's not, because the drugs are not effective. They're effective for the companies that make them and for the physicians that prescribe them. There's always exceptions, but there's just too much drugs being used. Okay, so we'll see you next week. Have a great week.
Hey everybody, Dr. Ron's finished for the day. I hope you got some good wisdom for what the man had to say. If it's all about good health, he's the man you got to see. He has a lot more answers for you. So tune in next week when the doctor is in the house. Or when the doctor is in the house. And let the doctor know what's bothering you. When the doctor is in the house. The doctor is in the house. The doctor is in the house. And let the doctor know what's bothering you. I'm sure he can tell you just what to do. The doctor is in the house. The doctor is in the house. Let the doctor know what's bothering you when the doctor is in the house.
See you next week.